So I'm going to turn to Erica, Max, and Gabe, and I'm going to ask them to say anything that they like about the language poets. You can you can shout out a language poet or a poem. You can say something about language poetry that hasn't been said, and we'll see where we'll go from there. So Erica, Max, Gabe. Oh, I want to add Jake to that too. So it's going to be quick, rapid fire. Erica first.
Okay. I'm a fan of the language poets because I think that they really open one up to the possibility of poetry.
Yeah.
And in particular, this week, I've been really I'm always excited by Harriet Mullen. And I also really love the Tyrone Williams and the Bruce Andrews that are both
Yeah.
the Mod Plus.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, Erica. Yeah, those new poems in Mod Plus would just really add a lot to this week. Max, a thought on the language poets?
Just to go off of Nick's comment on the call about the Grenier and a little bit about what you were saying about what Grenier is doing recently, Al. Trying to think a little bit about what Nick quoted in terms of the extra linguistic reality. I can't exactly remember what he said, but it was pretty cool,
Yeah.
and it stuck with me.
Yeah.
And the Sentences project is pretty cool. I'm just looking at the box again with all of those cards in it, and there's something that's very inviting and playful about this this material manifestation of poetry that's a little bit different from, I think, some of the works that we'll encounter in the last 2 weeks, specifically some of these kind of Herculean Kenny Goldsmith works where there's this sort of like frantic energy to transcribe something that nobody wants to read, and how that's sort of in contrast with this very welcoming, playful Grenier work of just inviting you to kind of open up this box and sit with all these sentences and make your own words out of it. And then also just what you were talking about, this sort of slowing down of writing is really lovely. It's sort of meditative. It's a different kind of energy than the sort of transcribing energy or even the aleatory energy that we'll encounter later.
Yeah. Thank you, Max. That was fantastic. I'm glad we're doing this. Gabe, what's your thought on the language poets, having gone back to them again?
I have many, but to stick to kind of Grenier mostly, we should notice how much the language poets love the typewriter. It's like the quintessential tool of the language poetry school, not just because, well, some of them are writing on it, but you look at somebody like Grenier's sentences, or Aram Saroyan, who I mentioned earlier, or even Bernstein and things like that, and there's this real focus on that touching of the type, the feel of the language being put on the page. So when you look at sentences, even in its online version, you've got something like cookies over Lake Superior, but put on that in a single line in that type font on a big card. And that's what I think Grenier is so good at, and Grenier really works like in typewriter form quite often. I think Grenier is so good at making something feel like so mechanical and so wonderful at the same time, which is why I love those pen drawings, because they are childish and strange and kind of difficult, but when you finally read it, it's so like lovely, naturalistic, romantic imagery. So you have Grenier doing this kind of comedy routine when he reads it, where he's like, "What did I write right there?"
Yeah.
Oh,
he doesn't even know. Gabe, did you see him at the writer's house when he was there last? Yeah.
Like, readings we had, because it was just like, it was him and oh my god, I'm forgetting his name, but the 2 giant volume books of basically the same poem over and over again, slightly changed about the day.
Stephen
Radcliffe.
Yeah.
Stephen
Radcliffe. Yeah.
Super meditative, like monster book for about 30 minutes, and then you had the 30-minute stand-up routine of Grenier reading his own things, but both of them were just thinking about like landscape art.
Yeah,
it was great.
Totally right, Gabe. That's great. Jake, what are your thoughts about the language poets?
I remember hearing a recording of Eileen Miles, kind of doing like almost like an improvised talk poem introduction at a reading, and she referenced language poets. And she said, and the way I understand language poets, it's like the brain walked in. And I like that a lot. And you know, I think like a lot of language poetry brings together, you know, philosophy and literary theory, and it's really intellectual. But at the same time, I think the playfulness that Gabe and Max mentioned is there too in different ways, and you know, certainly humor, and also and this is especially resonant for me, the music that a lot of the language poets seem to reference and know a lot about jazz. And I'm specifically thinking about a performance that I was at where Bruce Andrews was reading off of these cards. And there was a dancer, and there was like kind of improvised music happening at the same time. And it was like, you know, the continuing Erica's riff on extra linguistic reality. That the quote, I think that was extra linguistic reality, just like these disconnected little phrases that in interaction with dance and music definitely created something extra linguistic and playful and awesome, and not just the brain, not just the big brain that's there, but also like these other
Body too,
things.
yeah. Jake.